Hi friends, it's Pastor Veronica here with a special story just for you. Now, the story that I have actually comes from a very special translation of the Bible. It's called the Beginner's Bible. It is one of my favorite translations to read to all of the little people in my life, and I want to share with you that this particular copy is a very special one for me. So you can see there's stuff written inside, and no one stole it and put bad things in it. This was my going away gift from the congregation that I served on my internship in Florida. And all the kids that I worked with, they wrote down the page number for one of their favorite Bible stories in the front with their name next to it so I could look it up and share. But I want to share with you a very special story today. Today's special story is called A New Land, and this story comes from Genesis chapter 12 through 17. Now, that's a whole lot of writing in the Bible in the Old Testament, but this is sort of a shortened version with some pictures to make it a little bit easier for you to hear and read. So it's called A New Land, and it actually covers a part of the story of someone named Abraham. So, are you ready? Let's hear the story of Abraham and the new land. There once was a good man named Abraham. God had a special plan for him. God told Abraham to move to a new land. Let's see. So Abraham left the place where he lived. He packed up everything he had, his tents, his dishes, his clothes. He gathered all his animals, and he went to the new land that God showed him. Abraham's wife Sarah and his nephew Lot went with him. Abraham and Lot also brought along helpers to take care of their animals. But there was a problem. Abraham's helpers and Lot's helpers were always fighting. Abraham said to Lot, "Let's not have all this fighting. You take your helpers and choose a new place to live, and I will take my helpers and move to a different land." Lot chose first. He took the best looking land for himself. It had plenty of water and grass for his animals. Abraham moved his animals and his family. He set up his tents near the big trees at Hebron. God made a promise to Abraham. He said, "You will have so many children and grandchildren and great grandchildren that no one will be able to count them, and all the land that you see right now will be yours." Well, let's see if there's another picture here. And that is that part of the story for Abraham. But let's hear a little bit more. Now that Abraham is all set up with all of his family and his animals, and he's got a place to live in a beautiful land, and God has spoken to him, now let's read the next part of the story. This is about something really special that happens to Abraham's family. This story is called The Promise, and it's the story of someone named Isaac. Abraham was sitting by his tent one very hot day. He looked up and saw three men standing nearby. He was happy to have visitors. He hurried to them and asked them to stay for dinner. Then Abraham ran to his tent. "Quick, Sarah," he said, "get some flour and bake some bread. We are having guests for dinner." Sarah made a good dinner for them. While they were eating, the men said a very surprising thing. They said, "Next year, you and Sarah will have a baby boy." Let's see what happens next. Now, this was surprising because Abraham and Sarah did not have any children, and they were too old to have a baby. Sarah was listening in the tent. She heard what the men said, and she laughed. She did not believe them. Then God said, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" And God kept God's promise. Even though Sarah and Abraham were old, they gave him a baby boy, and they named him Isaac. I love that story. I love that Abraham and Sarah thought that something couldn't happen, and God made it happen for them. They thought that it was impossible for them to become parents, and yet God made it happen for them. One of my favorite phrases to hear is that nothing is impossible for God. And I want you to know that too, that nothing is impossible for God. Now, maybe you're not having a story quite like this, but God makes promises to you too. The most important promise that God makes to you is that God loves you so much. And you don't have to do anything to deserve that love. And that's pretty amazing. So that means even when you're arguing, like the story of Lot and Abraham and their people arguing with each other, even if you get into an argument, even if you move away, even if you think that something that you want or wish or dream for is completely impossible, the thing that never ever changes is how much God loves you. God loves you no matter what. God loves you when you have a good day, when you have a bad day, when you have a sad day or an okay day. God loves you when you have lots of energy and get into trouble. And God loves you when you just feel like laying around and doing nothing. God loves you whether you are home all the time or outside all the time or running around all the time. God loves you no matter where you live, no matter how tall you grow, no matter how short you stay. God loves you whatever shape or size you are, whatever the color of your skin, however your hair looks, whether you wear glasses or braces. God loves you just the way you are. And you are beautifully and wonderfully made in God's image. I want you to remember that and think about how God can do all kinds of amazing things, like love you when it might seem impossible. I hope that you sleep well and have a wonderful night, and I look forward to telling another story to you again later this week. Remember, God loves you, and so do I. Good night, my friends, and sleep well.